day of May. 34 minutes past the hour, and for the first time since officials started implementing lockdowns to slow the spread of coronavirus, all 50 states have now partially reopened. Connecticut becoming the final state today to begin lifting restrictions, now allowing retail and restaurant to reopen their doors. This as health officials continue to warn Americans remain at risk of catching the highly transmissible and sometimes deadly virus. Let's bring in our regular guest, two-time Emmy Award-winning TV producer, marketing and branding expert for Fortune 500 companies. As a manager, he built the Steve Harvey Media brand. He's also on my show every week to discuss money-making conversations happening in the world today. They affect you. They affect your business. They affect your family. Let's welcome into the show, Rushion McDonald. Good Wednesday morning, Rushion.
Well, good morning. Always great to talk to you and your listeners. Yes, the company, the Connecticut was the last, but that's not really the true tale, because like in the D.C., Virginia, Maryland areas, not until June 1st will barber shops and beauty salons be allowed to open. So a lot of business is still out there suffering and not able to do business because of the fact the restrictions are still out there. And I feel necessary restrictions, but that doesn't mean it's a positive for the people who own these businesses, not positive for the people who work at these businesses and trying to make a living that's basically been shut down since the month of March. March.
Yeah, not positive at all, Rushion. So what's, we're trying to balance health and safety versus the economy. We have many people still at risk. You have these underlying conditions. How do the business owners get out and navigate this right now?
Well, first of all, our leadership got to get their act together. Stop passing laws or ordinances that eventually will be a casualty to the overall the successful part. Like, for instance, because of the pandemic, bars and restaurants in Pennsylvania will now soon be allowed to sell cocktails to go. I don't know how you could deal with that with DUIs and all that if somebody's being allowed to drive with a Long Island iced tea. And so that's what's happening in Pennsylvania. When you go to the state of Georgia, April 30th, the governor signed a law where teenagers could take the driver's test, but they need to take the road test, and they will get their driver's license. 20,000 kids will issue driver's license without taking the road test. 7 days ago, after an uproar from all of us in the state of Georgia, they changed the ordinance. Now they have to take the road test, but they don't have to leave the parking lot. So you're still allowing, because of the pandemic, we still are doing things that are not smart to the general health and welfare of the general public. One state is allowing people basically to drive drunk, and this state is allowing teenagers to drive on the road without even showing they can drive on the road. So with that being said, we're at a point in our lives with this pandemic. First of all, it's important that we all open back up. Yeah. But the thing that I don't like is the fact the way the stories shift in the media, and they don't tell you the true story. That's what's really making me annoyed right now, Matt.
Well, what do we do about it, Rushion? You mentioned the story shifting. I guess I'm assuming you're alluding at reopening the economy. The story shifting.
Well, I'd say we're about to cross 100,000 deaths here, Matt, in this country. And so, it's great that Twitter says, hey, you can stay at home. I want them to say that, because as an employee, you can save money on daycare. You can save money on clothes. You can save money on lunch money. You can save money on your insurance and wear and tear of your life, and also be maybe a better parent for your child. That can benefit. But also when you turn around, when you open this whole pandemic run, all we talked about was the death of senior citizens. We don't hear that story anymore.
No.
But that doesn't mean senior citizens have stopped dying. Then the story shifted to first responders and how great they were doing. Yeah. First responders are still out there doing great. And actually, some of them are being made ill by the COVID-19 virus. Yeah. Those stories have went away. Then we went to the underlying conditions, went to the people of color who was affected. Now we're at the children and the mystery illness. And that's not fair, because what it does, it makes people believe that a part of the problem that was being complained about or being brought to our attention has been resolved. And people are still dying in senior citizens' homes. People of color are still dying. People with underlying conditions are still dying. And so when we open this country, you're giving a false sense that there's a safety net that's going to protect us all, and that is not the case. That's what I'm talking about. The media is not playing the right role in this. We can point our finger at the White House. We can point our finger at the local government, but we got to go back to the media and say, get your story straight and make it consistent. So when we walk out our front door, we feel we have a clear understanding of what we're walking into.
Good point. And we start this show every morning with the numbers, and we've been touching on the respiratory illness as well. I think if you're going to argue, you have to argue with empathy, Rashawn, and I think that's something that both of us agree on here. Let's talk about point taken on the media, by the way. Let's talk about scams, Rashawn. We've heard the scams about stimulus checks, whether or not we have to pay this money back to the IRS. We know they're out there. What do people need to be aware of?
First of all, do not respond to any telephone call or text about your stimulus checks. The IRS will not call you. In fact, you can't call the IRS. Don't text. They will not text you or email you about your stimulus payment. The Federal Trade Commission is warning that these thieves are posing as government employees to prey on you. In other words, they'll contact you and say, hey, look, you signed this. You give me your bank account. We're going to make a deposit into your account, and then they ask you to write a check to get your money early. And so that's a scam technique. That's a scam technique that's been used prior to the pandemic. But now they know people are desperate, people are unemployed, they're prying on their weakness and their desire to get money immediately. So you get a phone call saying, hey, hi, we're with the government. We want to send you your money, but we need for you to send us a check. And once we get the copy of that check and make that check out for $1,200, once you get a copy of that check, then we'll be able to deposit the money directly into your account. By sending them that check to sign, then they'll be able to access your account and make a direct deposit. Those type of scams are happening out there on a daily basis, or they'll call you for and try to get your debit card ID password and things like that, all under the guise that they're going to make a direct deposit into your bank account. These type of scams are happening every day, and we have to avoid them on a regular basis.
Let me ask you this, Rashawn. You talk about New York, you talk about hard-hit areas, California, Seattle, where I'm at, where you're at, in fact. Big cities, do you see people leaving them because of how this spread and moves so fast through the areas that you've already mentioned?
Let me just tell you this, Matt. The big losers in all this are going to be office buildings. When you hear Twitter make a statement that, hey, work at home, a lot of companies, like I've told you personally, my employees have not returned to the office space that I rent. I have 3 offices. They're right now empty. In fact, I closed one of the offices down and combined it into 2. So the big loser right now is going to be office spaces. And so that means that if office spaces are losing, that means businesses that are surrounding, especially in the downtown areas, that rely on people to go to these offices, stop by for breakfast, definitely stop by for lunch, may grab a meal on the way home, they are going to be affected by it. So, we've done such a great job over the past decade of revitalizing downtown communities by putting stadiums downtown, by giving tax breaks. Because of that situation in the pandemic, what we've learned is that when you have close, massive people like New York, that's why New York is such a victim of the pandemic or the COVID-19 because of the mass transit system. People working close, people traveling close. And that's why minorities are victims of that because their lifestyle. They live in apartments, they live in mass transit environments. And so that's hurting big cities. And so big cities have to pause and say, hey, like, for instance, in Atlanta, they're making pathways where you can ride your bike, walkways. They're trying to slow down the exit because right now people are afraid. People are afraid to be able to say they can go out their front door and live right. So there will be some people who will leave the downtown communities and go to the suburbs, but I think we're going to be all right. But the big losers will be office space. They will not win in the pandemic, Matt. They will be the biggest casualty of all.
We're up against it, my friend. All of our conversations, money-making conversations with Rashawn McDonald can be found on Rashawn's Money-Making Conversations YouTube channel. Rashawn, thank you, my friend. We'll talk to you again next week.
America's First News. We'll be right back.